Saddam Hussein was made a beauty. He was right at Babylon, and he was the Assyrian. Of course, he wasn't the Antichrist, but boy, he had qualifications. But so does Obama. He got some good ones, the elephant ears. You take Obama, you take that fellow there as a mulatto, and he's got Shemitic blood in him because the Arabs are located with Shem through Ishmael. And he got African blood in him because he was born in Africa. And he got Japheth in him because he had a white mother. Amen. He's a perfect leopard. Amen. Now, I'm not going to go out of here and say I said Obama was Antichrist. He ain't smart enough to be the Antichrist. But if he...
Now we have a special guest. Donald hasn't been on the show for years. I don't know why, but I'm glad he's with us today. Donald Trump, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Hello, Michael.
Glad to see you a few weeks ago in Florida at the great Mar-a-Lago. It was a pleasure.
Nice. It was nice to see you with your son and another very special guest, a great guy, too.
Donald, I don't know how much time you have. Do you care to talk about politics?
I love to talk about politics.
Well, can I ask the pregnant question?
Go ahead.
We have midterm elections coming up in November, which will shape the course of the future of this country,
right,
which I'm very much frightened about, because if we don't take back the Senate, we're cooked. With a perennial left-wing socialist administration somewhere in the White House and the State House, are you going to run for national office at any point? But you personally, are you going to step in and run America like a business for us?
Well, a lot of people want me to, and you understand that, and I'm getting calls all the time. We're getting so many people want me to. Hey, Michael, if you never thought about it, I am very proud of myself. I can tell you that. So go ahead. What was your question?
Putting a wife to work is a very dangerous thing. I create stars. I love creating stars. I mean, I've really given a lot of women great opportunity. Unfortunately, after they're a star, the fun is over for me. It's like a creation process. It's almost like creating a building. It's pretty sick.
Let's pray he comes to his senses. But with regard to New York State and America, Donald, many people would vote for you. You know that on a national platform.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've certainly had that, and I've certainly seen it in the polls.
Yes, and Donald, I got to say this. I polled women. America wants a man, and they want a tough man to run the country. They want a father figure. You'd be a great debater, and I think as a businessman, you'd really appeal to America today. I know you don't want to give up all your business interests to run for office, but frankly, I would encourage it.
Well,
I would encourage it. I would predict that you'd do very well.
So since he was young, Trump has been, and you guys know this, he's been on numerous TV shows, talk shows, and what was the question that he was always asked?
Are you going to run for president?
Mr. Trump, are you going to run for president? Every interview. And so he would toy with them by saying no, and he would give them his political 2 cents, and he looked handsome and young and charming, and everybody liked him.
As the president.
And to me, this was just predictive programming at its finest. You know, why would this random New Yorker who builds skyscrapers go on Phil Donahue? This is 1987. Who cares? Like, he was propped up for a reason.
Yeah, you're right. Like, that's a good point. Like, why him, right? There's tons and tons of guys who build skyscrapers or buildings and commercial real estate and stuff, but it's like he's the one, like you said, you've seen him on all these talk shows, and it was very, now looking back on it, it's very clear for whatever reason he was the chosen one at that time to play this role.
Absolutely.
But there's something, you stand up. Turn to Isaiah chapter 41. And look at the length God goes to about this to explain this thing. Isaiah chapter 41. Isaiah chapter 41, begin at verse 6. Look how much time the Lord spent in this thing. Just verse after verse after verse after verse. I read in the New Testament the Antichrist will cause, or Daniel, he'll cause craft to prosper in his hand. I read in the book of Revelation that Babylon is dealing with craftsmen. I read in the book of Acts that the craftsmen that gathered around the silversmiths were making images of Diana, and they said, this is the statue that fell down from heaven. Isaiah chapter 41:7, idolatry. Idolatry. So when the Antichrist shows up, what does he do? He puts up an image and gives it life, and cause many don't worship the image will get killed. Now what we're dealing with is a standing idol. So when he says the abomination of desolation stand in the holy place, the indication is that an image of the Antichrist is placed right there at the entrance of that holy place, right there at the door. Chapter 8, verse 1. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 1. Now, if the image is there, chances are 10 to 1, when the Antichrist enters the temple, the Antichrist goes right in the Holy of Holies, the son of perdition. And he sits down in the mercy seat, and that's why it's called a seat. You ever wonder about that thing? How come it's a seat if nobody's going to sit on it? The Lord don't sit on it. The Lord's presence is above the mercy seat, and the cherubims don't sit on it. They're on both sides of it. But it's said to be a seat. You're told in Revelation chapter 3, I know where you dwell, even where Satan's seat is. So it looks like what happened in the tribulation is the devil comes in the temple and goes in the Holy of Holies and sits down on the seat and puts one arm on one cherub, the other one on the other cherub, and says, Holy is the Lord, I'm it. Worship me. That's the devil. So if I was going to guess, I'm just guessing, I'd say some kind of an image has to be put up right here, and it talks, it has life. And if you don't worship it, you get your head cut off right there. And the Baalite priest takes the blood and says, Adomina spifi fo fami perbationum adesta fidelis, Hail Mary, Holy Mary, and drinks the blood. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 1. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, and the 5th day of the month, as I sat in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, and the hand of the Lord God fell upon me, that I beheld, and lo, a likeness of the appearance of fire, from his loins even upward to the appearance of brightness, the color of amber. And he put forth the form of a hand, took me by a lock of mine head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and brought me the visions of God to Jerusalem. That's where the temple is. To the door of the inner gate that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh the jealousy. Verse 5. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift thine eyes now toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes toward the north, and behold, northward, at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. Now that's a type of something. So I'm guessing, and I'd guess this, I'd say the abomination that maketh desolate is the Antichrist himself coming to the temple and sitting down in the temple and setting up an idol or a statue or image at the entrance to the tabernacle. That's what I'd say.
Guys, this is a Jewish coin minted by the Sanhedrin back after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. We're going to talk in this video of the significance of that declaration and move of the U.S. Embassy. What does it mean? What are we looking at here in this coin? Okay. In December 2017, Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The Jews took it upon themselves to view this as something called Cyrus' decree. Now you can see Donald Trump here, and you see King Cyrus here. He is an ancient Persian, you see Persian Empire, he's an ancient Persian king. And what did Cyrus do? Cyrus allowed the Jews to build their second temple. So you can see on the other side of the coin this is a temple coin. This is the third temple. So they're viewing Donald Trump as a modern day fulfillment of building the third temple. But also what's on here is the peace deal. Now this coin was released in the year 2018. Okay? But you can see the dove on here. Sure, it says like doves to the nest, but really what the dove means is the peace deal. You see the olive branch. That means peace. That's Noah. Okay? So we announced in advance, guys, the meaning and prophetic time of confirming the covenant. We have other videos on that. But in this video, we're going to discuss Cyrus' decree. So what they've done here is they've put in Cyrus, and they've basically said that when Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy, that he is King Cyrus. King Cyrus was called the Mashiach, Messiah. Okay, so they're calling Donald Trump the Messiah. Now you see this here. This is called the Cyrus cylinder. Okay, and there's actually a copy of this in the United Nations, and what this is King Cyrus issued decrees all over his empire to allow the different peoples to make a temple to their different gods. This one is a cylinder that Cyrus gave to Babylon, okay, and allowed them to build a temple for Marduk. So this is considered the first Bill of Rights in ancient history, because all the other empires destroyed all the other religions, but Cyrus allowed for them to build a temple to their different gods. So whoever the gods were of the different, he allowed for them, okay? So they're saying Donald Trump is doing the same thing. Now, we announced this ahead of time. 2 weeks after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, on Hanukkah, what you're looking at is a Hanukkah. Hanukkah has 9 candlesticks, and or 9 lamps, okay? But the Jews dedicated this underground synagogue. Okay, now this is dedicated on the Jewish calendar, Hanukkah, which was December 19th. And here it is. Most of you that are familiar with this channel, you're familiar with this synagogue here. If you're not, we will have links in the description field to describe what we're looking at. Something called the Chamber of Hewn Stone, which is clearly part of the third temple. Okay, there's the Hanukkah to the right, and there is the globe pomegranate, okay, visible from down below, looking up. Here is a view from one end of the synagogue that has 70 seats. In the back, it has 24 seats. This is called the Chamber of Hewn Stone. It is part of the third temple, and it was dedicated on Hanukkah. There we can see the Hanukkah. It was dedicated on Hanukkah 2017. Okay, 2 weeks after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem as part of the Cyrus decree. Okay, and so again, you can see this. We have visited this a few times. And again, as we zoom in, there is the Hanukkah, and that is basically them saying, watch for Hanukkah. Well, you say, Leland, the third temple foundation, that was not laid yet. Actually, it was. You're looking at it right here. This is a tour underground at the Western Wall. And our tour guide is showing us the temple. Of course, that's a diagram, but this is a Western Wall. And you're looking at stones about the size of a school bus, okay, at the Western Wall underground from where most people are praying and everything up above, but down below is the foundation of the temple. And you look up, and here is the synagogue, okay, the chamber of hewn stone, which is part of the third temple. We've shown you this many times. This was dedicated on December 10th, 2017. That's correct. 4 days after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy on December 6th, 4 days later, they dedicated the third temple. This is the foundation here, up above the synagogue we have shown you. And it is 4 days after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy. Guys, I spoke to people in Jerusalem that said they talked to architects which showed them the architectural plans for the third temple. When they did, the person saw the plans for this synagogue, which you're looking at here. So down below, you can see down below is the people. To the right is the wall, and up above, this is the synagogue. This is called the Chamber of Hewn Stone. It's in Ezekiel chapter 8. We have lots of videos on this. Okay, hopefully you've seen this, but this is part of the third temple, guys. It was connected to the third temple. Now, you say, but Leland, those walls in that place is Fortress Antonia. I agree with you. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. The Jews believe that that wall and that place is where the third temple, the previous temples were. So that's where they're anticipating building their third temple. But this is part of it that's already dedicated 4 days after Donald Trump announced he charged me to build him a house. Okay, this was years in the making, but it was dedicated 4 days after his announcement. Okay, so the third temple, parts of it you're looking at right here, underground, by the western wall. Okay, and again, that was just days dedicated. Dedicated in English means Hanukkah. In Hanukkah, 2017 is when Donald Trump announced that. And here you can see it. Okay, this was dedicated on Hanukkah. It's part of the Cyrus decree, it's part of the third temple. And then it's very important for us to watch what happens the next year on Hanukkah. That's what that Hanukkah is telling us. It's telling us Hanukkah is on dedication, major things will happen. That's right, we were on site in Jerusalem at the altar dedication. Here you see the altar, here you see the lamb in the priest's hand, the fire is lit, and they're throwing the lamb onto the fire. So this is the altar dedication for the third temple that took place during Hanukkah. I believe it was December 10th. There he's putting on the fire. 2018. So 2017, the Chamber of Hewn Stone. 2018, the altar for the third temple is dedicated. And there you see the lamb that was sacrificed, burning on the coals of the fire as a very, very ominous sign of the sacrifices spoken of in Daniel chapter 9. So you say, Leland, are you saying that Donald Trump is a modern-day Cyrus? No, I'm not saying Donald Trump is a modern-day Cyrus. I'm saying the Jews will look at him as a Cyrus. They'll look at the Antichrist as a Cyrus-type figure because it says in Isaiah chapter 45 that he's a Mashiach, anointed one. Okay? And the Antichrist is the anti-Mashiach, the anti-Messiah, the false Messiah. But guys, you have to keep in mind, it is going to be the Jews that are going to look to someone to build a temple for himself. Donald Trump knows that the Jews will build a third temple, and he is anticipating going into that third temple.
Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It was 70 years ago that the United States under President Truman recognized the state of Israel. Ever since then, Israel has made its capital in the city of Jerusalem, the capital the Jewish people established in ancient times. I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The United States remains deeply committed to helping facilitate a peace agreement that is acceptable to both sides. I am also directing the State Department to begin preparation to move the American Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
This announcement fulfills Daniel chapter 11, verse 45, which you see in front of you. And he shall plant or move the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Now, we consider that the palace is an ancient name for an embassy. And between the seas is clearly between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. Okay, the U.S. Embassy was in Tel Aviv, which is on the Mediterranean Sea, and he moved it to Jerusalem. So clearly this is a fulfillment of what Donald Trump is doing of Daniel chapter 11, verse 45, as it relates to the Antichrist. Okay, and we were here on site. Here is the U.S. Embassy. Here is the fulfillment of the prophecy. Photos taken with my own camera. Okay, this is the embassy, and here you see the seal of the United States, just like you saw the seal on the coin. Okay, the Antichrist moving his palace, moving his embassy to Jerusalem. Here you see Embassy United States, Jerusalem, Israel, Donald J. Trump, President, who is, of course, the Antichrist, dedicated on May 14th, 2018. In just a few months, they had the embassy established. Now, how did we know this in advance? What are the things on this coin? What do these things mean? You can see it says to fulfill 70 years. And you can see it says, and he charged me to build a house in Jerusalem. So the Sanhedrin minted this coin, recognizing Donald Trump moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. But what is this talking about? Well, we knew this in advance by determining the years of the decree when the United Nations issued a decree in November 1947 to establish a Jewish state. That's when the 70 years began. But what is it that we're looking at here? These are quotes from 2 Chronicles chapter 36, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah the prophet, to fulfill 70 years. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, and that was Donald Trump's first year, okay, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus the king, that he made a decree throughout all his kingdom and put it in writing, saying, thus says Cyrus the king of Persia, he has charged me to build him a house, a temple in Jerusalem. So the Cyrus decree is to build a temple in Jerusalem after 70 years. We knew the precise day because it's listed for us right here in Haggai chapter 2, verse 18. Consider now from this day, the 24th day of the 9th month, okay, the day the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Consider it. That was the precise date. Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy after 70 years. Here we have something amazing. We have the Cyrus scroll. This is a Syrian depiction of the restoration. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem. Here is an example of the Cyrus scroll, and the book of Ezra gives the version of this that went to the Jews. So this is the declaration of Cyrus in a frieze, and the goods going to restore the temple at the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. And being depicted here as well is we have the renewed covenant. The apostate Christians worship him as Cyrus, and the Jews must also accept him as a Cyrus-type figure because 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, who opposed and exalted himself above all that is called God or is even worshipped, so that he, as God, sits in the what? Temple of God. The temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is the prophecy. This must be fulfilled. Okay, and it must be the Jews that invite him into a third temple, when therefore you see in the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, stand in the holy place. That's a section of the temple. Okay, what have we learned? Daniel 8:11, 45. He, the Antichrist, will plant his tabernacles, his embassy between the seas in the glorious holy mountain, which we know to be Jerusalem. That's what happened when Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy, fulfilling Daniel 11:45. Donald Trump is the Antichrist. He must be the Jewish Messiah. The Antichrist must be accepted by the Jews to go into their third temple. The Antichrist must make a peace deal between America and Israel. These are videos we've shown you, proof and evidence. Donald Trump is the Antichrist. On the coin, you can clearly see the third temple. The peace deal is leading to the third temple. These are things that have already happened. Prophecies already being fulfilled. Here you can see him say, I am the chosen one.
Excuse me. Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
He said on his Twitter account, I am the king of Israel, the second coming of God. Guys, Donald Trump is the Antichrist. We got a playlist on this. Please watch all these videos. This is all proof and evident facts. Donald Trump is the Antichrist.
But when the United States stands with Israel, the chances of peace really rise, and rises exponentially. That's what will happen when Donald Trump is president of the United States. We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem. And we will send a clear signal that there is no daylight between America and our most reliable ally, the State of Israel.
Today is Donald Trump's first full day as the 45th president of the United States.
But it was not all a celebration. More than 200 anti-Trump demonstrators were arrested during a day of protest in Washington. Some set fires or threw bricks into windows of businesses.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. My announcement today marks the beginning of a new approach to conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. That it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Even him whose coming is after the workings of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
Sadly, the American dream is dead. When we have the vaccine, we have the military all lined up, and the military is going to be doing it in a very powerful manner. These are people that don't usually do vaccines. They do soldiers, and they do lots of other things that, frankly, are more difficult. But we have our general, and logistically, he's all set. Tony, do you want to say something about that?
That is correct. As the vaccine rolls out, we'll be getting them distributed, and as you probably have heard, we are going to make sure that we do it in an equitable way.